I made a video on the letters of Virginia Galilei and the relationship she had with her father Galileo. After making the video, I was asked by family and friends why I made it. I felt a deja vu, a reliving during that time of the Reformation, and was drawn into the love Virginia expressed for Galileo. It was that same love I experienced with my own dad. A descriptive picture of Virginia is also given as she shares her many experiences through her letters in the convent of San Matteo in the 17th century backdrop of Arcetri, Florence. There were about 124 letters dating from 1623 to 1633. On page 488 of The Voice of Hermes, Galileo says, "Even the housewife who is cooking in the kitchen expresses a great deal of science, as you can easily see, in the composition of various dishes or as she is baking bread." Virginia certainly dealt in the science of her many duties, as head apothecary, choir master, and nurse for the sick. Galileo relates his personal history about living on the earth plane in The Voice of Hermes on page 485. "It was a very dangerous age, and one who expounded new truths was in a grave danger of losing his life. For anyone who dared to think or act differently from the clergy or the priesthood of the Roman Imperial Church was usually accused of high treason and thrown into a dungeon to await some very dire fate. Now this place was horrible beyond description, and I witnessed the poor wretches being brought in day after day, some whom were led away to be burned at the stake, or to be further tortured into admission of sins and guilt on the rack and the wheel. Whether they were innocent or not made little difference. They were always condemned. You can sympathize with me very greatly. I reasoned to myself that a dead Galileo would be of no use to the earth. Consequently, I publicly recanted and got down on my knees before the fat bishops and told them that I had made a terrible mistake. However, that did not change my ideas one whit, and again I went about my work, only to be rearrested a couple of years later. Nothing but the intercessions of my very best friends and the fact that I had been of noble birth saved me from that time." Virginia, in her letters, wants to share in her father's sufferings while he was in Rome standing trial for the publication of his book, The Dialogue. There are two letters I want to share that Maria Celeste wrote to her father. In a letter of the 2nd of November, 1630, she is demonstrating the unarious principle of energy, of taking responsibility for your own actions, and in the eye of the beholder, where she consoles her father and counsels him to look within and reflect on the critical remarks made by some of his detractors. "Most beloved Lord Father, I am very sure you know better than I, sire, that tribulations are the touchstone where we test the quality of God's love. Thus, to whatever extent we can patiently bear the trials he doles out, then in that same measure do we promise ourselves possession of the treasure of his love, which comprises our every good. I beseech you not to grasp the knife of these current troubles and misfortunes by its sharp edge, lest you let it injure you that way, but rather, seizing it by the handle, use it to excise all the imperfections that you may recognize in yourself, so that you rise above the obstacles, and in this fashion, just as you penetrated the heavens with the vision of a life scene, so will you, by piercing also through baser realms, arrive at an awareness of the vanity and fallacy of all earthly things, seeing and touching with your own hands the truth that neither the love of your children, nor pleasures, honors, or riches can confer true contentment, being in themselves short-lived, but that only in blessed God, as in our final destination, can we find real peace. Galileo formed strong ties with both daughters, but he had a special place in his heart for Virginia and often confided in her. October 3rd, 1633. Most beloved Lord Father, I would surely not want you to doubt my devotion, for at no time do I ever leave off commending you with all my soul to blessed God, because you fill my heart, sire, and nothing matters more to me than your spiritual and physical well-being. And to give you some tangible proof of this concern, I tell you that I succeeded in obtaining permission to view your sentence, the reading of which, though on the one hand it grieved me wretchedly, on the other hand it thrilled me to have seen it and found it a means of being able to do you good in some very small way. That is, by taking upon myself the obligation you have to recite one time each week the 7 Psalms, and I have already begun to fulfill this requirement, and to do so with great relish. The stress of the trial, along with the many prayer requirements imposed on Galileo, and not knowing when he would be coming home, caused Maria Celeste to become very ill, resulting in her death a few months after his homecoming in 1634. He himself wrote, "Virginia was a woman of exquisite nature and unique goodness, and was very close to me. She died over the course of 6 days at the age of 33, and left me in a state of extreme desolation." During Galileo's last days on earth, even with the loss of his eyesight, he still possessed that great spirit of discovery and exploration. He died in 1642 at the age of 78. Galileo explains the mistakes he made while on the earth plane on page 489 in The Voice of Hermes. "Living on the earth as I did at my period of time, I made the same common mistakes as many of the physicists and other men of science are still making in your time. I tried to derive all my equations and formulas from that particular third plane dimension. Of course, it just didn't work. I have had to learn since coming here to discard most of these concepts and to start afresh from entirely different directions, to assimilate and to formulate conceived patterns of philosophy and science." I love the conversation he had with Ioshana in Tesla Speaks Volume 2 when he says, "My relationship with the man Jesus helped me tremendously in my evolution and set me upon the scientific plane, then where I did start to come and go in a scientific relationship in my evolution. And that is one big reason that I incarnated and so endeavored in the fields of science as the man Galileo." Ioshana wanted to know if he was John the Revelator, as she felt a strong rapport with him, and he stated that he was her father in that time by the name of Lazarus. I hope I've captured a few insights into the life of Galileo and his daughter Virginia, with the principle, in giving love we receive, and in the bravery and courage they possessed through their lifetime on earth. Thank you.